There was once a city that believed it could never fall. Born from the ashes of Rome, raised by emperors and saints, Constantinople stood where continents touched, a bridge of marble and faith between worlds of sand and snow. Its walls glowed in the dawn like stone fire. Its domes mirrored the heavens. For 1,000 years, the Bosphorus carried gold, silk, and prayer to the city that called itself eternal. From the west came pilgrims and poets. From the east, traders and armies. And still the gates of the Queen of Cities remained unbroken. Here, faith was not a word, but an architecture. The bells of Hagia Sophia rose each morning like the heartbeat of a sleeping god. Mosaics shimmered in oil lamp light. Every stone whispered that eternity could be built by human hands. But even marble decays and faith grows tired. By the 15th century, glory had become echo. The markets were half empty, the harbors filled with silence and gulls. Where once banners of emperors waved above triumphal arches, now dust gathered in the cracks of forgotten mosaics. The empire that had ruled 3 seas was reduced to a single heartbeat. This city, still calling itself Rome, while the world beyond its gates spoke another language, worshipped another power. Across the water, a new dawn prepared its cannons. From Anatolia rode young sultans with iron and mathematics, dreaming not of paradise, but of conquest written in gunpowder. They called their leader Mehmed, the conqueror, a boy who saw prophecy in the stars above Constantinople's walls. And as that May morning broke, priests lit candles, soldiers kissed icons, and the people looked to the sky, believing sunrise meant protection. They did not know that the sun rising over the Golden Horn was the last their empire would ever see. At dawn, the horizon trembled with banners. The Empire of Stone awoke to find itself surrounded by the Empire of the future. Across the plain, the camp of Mehmed Thekut stretched like a new city. Tents of scarlet silk, towers of timber, rows of cannons glinting beneath the morning sun. The boy who called himself the Conqueror was only 21, yet his army was a world of its own. Anatolians, Persians, Arabs, Tatars, each drawn by gold, faith, or prophecy. Priests carried green flags marked with verses, while engineers measured the distance to eternity. From the walls of Constantinople, the defenders watched in silence. They saw not barbarians, but order. An army built not on rage, but calculation. The old soldiers whispered that no such force had stood before their gates since the days of Rome. And below, on the plain, the sound of hammers rose, timber platforms, siege towers, bridges of earth. The future was being built, one plank at a time. Inside the city, the Emperor Constantine the Saint prayed before the icon of the Virgin. He had no empire left to rule, only a few thousand men, merchants, monks, and sailors who refused to flee. Yet he vowed to defend this last island of the past as if the entire world depended on it. By night, the Golden Horn burned with reflections of campfires. The city's domes glowed faintly in the haze, each flame outside mirrored by a candle within. From both sides of the wall, men sang to the same God in different tongues, each certain he was listening only to them. And when the wind shifted, the citizens heard the first dull thud of cannon being tested, the heartbeat of a new age pounding at their gates. At first, the city heard only echoes, a distant rumble that rolled across the plain like approaching thunder. Then the ground shook. The first cannon roared, and with it ended 1,000 years of faith in stone. Smoke rose beyond the moat. Men covered their ears, eyes filled with dust, and the air itself seemed to burn. Never before had Constantinople heard such a sound, not the cry of war, but of invention. For the first time in history, man had forged a weapon that could humble the architecture of heaven. Each shot struck the Theodosian walls, the pride of emperors and the envy of nations. Blocks of limestone, older than the memories of kings, split like pottery beneath the iron spheres. Cracks spread like veins across the sacred fortifications, and from those fractures drifted not only dust, but fear. The defenders worked in silence. Masons and monks filled the gaps with broken marble and prayer. They hauled carts of earth, sang hymns as they carried stones, believing that God could hear through the thunder. Yet for every wall they mended, the cannon spoke again, and each reply was a sermon of the future. From the hilltop, Mehmed watched the city through a brass lens, the young sultan framed by banners and smoke. He saw the crumbling towers, the desperate figures along the battlements, and whispered a verse. Paradise lies beneath the shadow of swords. Around him his generals smiled. They could already smell victory in the wind. Inside the walls, Emperor Constantine knelt in the dust of Hagia Sophia. The candles flickered with every distant blast. He prayed not for triumph, but for meaning, that if his empire must fall, it would fall with dignity. The marble floor shook beneath him, and flakes of ancient gold drifted down from the mosaics like dying stars. For 40 days and nights, the city trembled. Each explosion tore a hole, not just in the wall, but in time itself. And through that widening wound, the world began to cross from one age into another, from the echo of faith to the noise of fire. In the final days, silence became the emperor's most loyal subject. Constantine the Palaiologos no longer ruled an empire, only a city of ghosts waiting for dawn. The palaces stood hollow, the gardens overgrown with the scent of salt and smoke. Even the sea outside the walls seemed to hold its breath. Each night he walked the corridors of the great palace alone. Marble cracked beneath his boots, and the torches painted trembling shadows on faded mosaics that once depicted triumphs now forgotten. There was no council left, no treasury, no hope, only faith shaped into duty. On the eve of the final assault, he gathered his soldiers in the square before Hagia Sophia. No crown, no throne, only armor darkened with age. He looked upon them not as subjects, but as brothers condemned to the same fate. If the city must die, he said, let it die with her emperor at the gate. That night, he entered the basilica alone. The candlelight danced across the golden icons, and from the dome above, pieces of ancient glass shimmered like constellations breaking apart. He knelt before the altar, removed his sword, and whispered the prayer of a man who knows the gods have gone silent. Outside, thunder rolled again, not from heaven, but from cannon. And when the echo reached him, he rose, placed the crown upon the steps, and walked into the darkened streets where faith would meet fire. The morning of May 29, 1453, arrived not with sunrise, but with thunder. From every hill beyond the walls, cannons opened fire in unison. The earth shook as if the Bosphorus itself roared against the city. Stones the size of men struck the towers of Theodosius, and for the first time, the ancient ramparts gave way. The final assault began before dawn. The air was black with smoke and arrows. The cries of men drowned beneath the voice of iron. The Ottomans surged through the breach, janissaries in white turbans, shields glinting red with flame. They moved like a tide guided by destiny. Behind them, drums beat like a single colossal heart. Inside, the defenders fought not for victory, but for remembrance. Monks, sailors, merchants, all became soldiers. They fought with hammers, with icons, with bare hands. Every street turned into a trench, every doorway into a shrine. In the chaos, Emperor Constantine was seen one last time near the gate of St. Romanus, sword drawn, armor shattered. Witnesses said he tore the imperial crest from his breastplate and shouted, Is there no one left alive who is Roman? Then the wave struck. When it passed, neither emperor nor empire remained. The banner of the crescent rose above the city's golden domes. Hagia Sophia's doors burst open, and the echo of prayers in Greek gave way to a single word: Allahu Akbar. Inside, soldiers halted in awe at the vast silence of the dome, and for a moment even conquest bowed to eternity. Outside, fire spread through the harbor and the markets. Smoke swallowed the sky, and the once bright mosaics of the city turned to gray. The queen of cities had fallen, not with a scream, but with a sigh. And as the sea carried the ashes of empires eastward, the age of faith sank beneath the tide of gunpowder. The world had changed, and none who lived that day could yet imagine that history itself had just been reborn. When the noise of conquest faded, only wind remained. It drifted through the broken gates, over the blackened stones, carrying the smell of smoke and salt from the Bosphorus. Constantinople was silent, a world between worlds. The city of emperors had become a grave of faith. Inside Hagia Sophia, the candles still burned, their flames trembling before the echo of new prayers. Where once the gospel had been sung in Greek, now the air filled with verses of the Quran. The marble shimmered in the same light, but the meaning of that light had changed. Beyond the walls, scavengers moved among bodies, collecting coins, armor, fragments of empire. The sea mirrored the red sky. Ships waited like vultures on the horizon. For centuries, men would argue who killed the old world, but no one could deny that this was its funeral. The fall of Constantinople was more than the death of a city. It was the closing of an age where heaven ruled history, and the birth of an age where iron and reason would write it instead. The Middle Ages ended not in parchment or prophecy, but in fire and dust, beneath a sky that watched without speaking. And as night settled over the straits, a new dawn waited beyond the sea, the Renaissance rising from the ruins of Byzantium, born from the ashes of a faith that refused to die.